So MVCI isn't looked back on in the highest regard, to say the least. Despite that, I think this game is great and is more than worthy of your attention. And in this video, I'm going to avoid criticizing MVCI's roster, presentation, and story mode, aspects that many other creators have talked about in numerous videos. No, instead I want to talk about why MVCI deserves more positive attention for introducing new mechanics, having rollback netcode, and selling over 2 million units. This entry in the series isn't played or revisited nearly as often as Marvel 2 or Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. To be honest, aside from the presentation, it's hard to understand why, because it contains a diverse roster and vast mechanical depth. To start, let's go over the main gameplay changes from Marvel 3. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite chooses to call back to the Versus series origins by dropping the decision to have a 3-man team in favor of a 2v2 format. Now, why did Capcom choose to go this route? The reason has to do with MVCI's tag mechanic, according to Combo Fiend. At the heart of the Versus series is the concept of partnership. In MVCI, the Switch system allows for partnership to be expressed in many ways we haven't been able to before, as players can switch between teammates at any time, anywhere, doing anything. We played with this system with teams of 3 versus teams of 2 and saw that it was much more manageable from both a player and spectator perspective with teams of 2. Now, on the surface, this can be seen as a tactic to cover up for an issue in development or maybe not being able to have as many characters. However, when you play Infinite, this explanation lines up with how the active tag mechanic works, since assists were replaced with it. I imagine trying to maintain this mechanic and having to balance that with a 3-man team would be daunting at best. Despite being short and expert character, MVCI still retains the quick frenetic action that the series is recognized for thanks to the addition of this mechanic. This decision may have also been made in the name of accessibility. The Versus series isn't the simplest game to pick up, to be honest. You have to learn multiple characters, different mechanics, and understand the synergy between characters to create a cohesive team. In Marvel 3, you had to make 6 decisions before you even pick the stage. Your characters and the assists that would go on to each character. Whereas in Infinite, you only had to pick 3. Your 2 characters and your Infinity Stone. Now, onto the Infinity Stone. The Infinity Stone is MVCI's replacement for that 3rd character, and not only replaces the last character of your team, but it also replaces the infamous X Factor as well. The Infinity Stones gave your team access to 2 new universal mechanics, Infinity Surge and Infinity Storm. Infinity Surge would be a universal move that would be depending on which stone you chose, and Infinity Storm is essentially a super amplified state of Infinity Surge that would last depending on how much of the Infinity gauge you had filled. The stones are also a reference to Marvel superheroes, where in that game you pick them up as you fought your opponent. But in this instance, they function more like the groove system in CVS 2. This allowed for a wide amount of experimentation and creativity, and also keeping the gameplay simple enough while replacing that 3rd character and the infamous comeback mechanic. For example, you can have a strong offensive team that does really high damage, yet lacks in mobility, and you can choose the Time Stone to make up for that weakness with its dash invincibility. Or if your team has great mobility and mix-up potential and low damage, you can pick the Power Stone and use its Infinity Storm ability to make up for that lack of damage, and increase the team's damage output as a whole. Now let's move on to the netcode. MVCI had rollback netcode. Some of you may be thinking, well, who cares? Every modern fighting game has rollback netcode. Well, post-COVID-19, the answer to that is yes. However, the world of fighting games was a different landscape 7 years ago, due to most fighting games being released at that time with the play-based netcode. Even games like Dragon Ball FighterZ, Tekken 7, MK11 were being released with delay-based netcode. This usually resulted in most of these games having a mediocre online experience, and from what I found on Steam, Reddit, and the quality of the connectivity on matches is very consistent and responsive. Most people have described it as being as good as local offline play. And as for my personal experience with Infinite I don't really have it.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
To keep things short, when the game initially came out, I was put off by the roster and its presentation and its upcoming competition in Dragon Ball Z Fighters at the time. By the time I finally got my hands on a copy of the game in 2021, there wasn't really anyone to play against, especially on the PC version of the game. According to Discord and Reddit, the PlayStation version has the biggest user base. Even now, at the time of this recording, trying to find a match on the PC version is close to impossible. Even still, the addition of rollback netcode was a standout feature in 2017, and it helped usher a standard of quality netplay across the fighting game genre of the day. The game sold 2.2 million copies. Now, to be honest, that may not seem like a lot compared to other mainstream titles and other fighters like MK11, Tekken 7, and Smash, but most of the time, games that sell over the 1 million unit threshold are still considered a moderate success. However, the problem that came into play is that Capcom expected the game to reach this sales figure within a year of launch on a budget that was comparable to one season of Street Fighter V, and also lacking a strong marketing campaign at that. Like, honestly, the game was revealed at PSX 2016. That's a flashback from the past, isn't it? Like, most people watching this video don't even know what that is. Like, not EVO, not E3, but PSX 2016. That just seems so off. Shoot, they didn't even use the MCU to help market the game, even though it was launched less than a year from Infinity War. Regardless, MVCI sales is a big positive, all things being taken into account. There are modern fighting games that struggle to sell millions of units even now, and when I take things like that into account, it's hard not to find what the game accomplished to be commendable. It just seemed very disappointing that even though the potential for strong sales were very apparent, Capcom didn't provide the game with even a full year of support. In summary, this game has some great things going for it that warrant more people coming back to play it, and it even returning to the competitive scene. The introduction of creative new mechanics in tandem with the addition of a quality rollback netcode makes for a game that deserves another chance regardless of its inconsistent presentation. And again, it sold over 2 million units. This by no means was a financial disaster for Capcom. The people that play this game, myself included, love how it plays and the fun that it has to offer. And if you haven't given this game a try, you really should. It consistently goes on sale on Steam for about $8. And if you're skeptical still about this game's presentation, well, there's something on the horizon for you. I mentioned that Infinite's presentation was one of the main factors in its critical failure and lack of capturing a mainstream audience. Well, I'm happy to say that there's a project in the works that is aiming to fix MVCI's subpar presentation and make some minor tweaks and balance adjustments to the gameplay as well. Its name is MVCI Beyond, and is being spearheaded by none other than Maximum Dude. The progress made so far in the project is visually striking, and improves things like lighting, shading, and giving the game a striking art style that makes it resemble a combination between Marvel 3 and the upcoming City of the Wolves. I'm looking forward to the finished build of the game as the dev team are going over everything with a keen eye for detail to make sure that it truly becomes a polished experience. You can keep up with the game's progress by following their Twitter and YouTube channel. Links will be in the description below. Anyway, I want to say thanks for watching this video. If you haven't played this game, again, you should give it a try. Thanks for watching, and peace.